Hi, this is Amy K. Watson, and welcome to the last video in the Inspirational Leadership Training series. And today we're going to be talking about putting the oxygen mask on yourself first. This is a metaphor that we hear so often in our culture. If you've ever been on a flight, you already know that at the beginning of the flight attendant will take you through the orientation to all of the safety features of the plane, including those little masks that will fall from the ceiling should the cabin lose pressure. So we all know this, and it's a metaphor that sometimes feels a little overused, but the reason for that is because it is so apt. It describes so well this very human tendency that we have to pay a little too much attention to taking care of everybody else and not paying enough attention to taking care of ourselves. So the flight attendants instruct us, when that mask falls from the ceiling, put it on yourself first before you assist someone else. We need to take that advice to heart in our own lives, and especially in purpose-driven leadership, because we who are purpose-driven can be so stubborn. We love to teach other people about self-care, while meanwhile we are driving ourselves into the ground. So this is a dynamic that I write about a lot in my blog, and I'm so excited because you're going to be able to start getting those emails from me with my blog posts and other cool things now. But I have been traveling this journey for a long time, so I have learned a lot of lessons that I'm very happy to share with you about how to support building new habits. So what I'm going to share with you today are some tips for self-care that you can start to implement right away. You can start doing them right during this video even. You don't have to put extra time on your calendar in order to do these things. So they will help you to build better relationships and to get better results right away. The first one, breathing. It's something that we can take for granted, and how grateful we can be that this is something that happens for us, that we don't have to think about, part of our automatic nervous system. And yet, there is so much to be gained by being intentional and mindful about breathing. So there's just a handful of thoughts that I want to share with you about breathing so that you can get as much benefit from this as possible. So the first is simply around the diaphragm. The diaphragm is a muscle at the bottom of your lungs that's usually shaped like this. And when you breathe in, it will flatten out to a greater or lesser extent, depending on how you use it. So if you breathe in so deeply that your stomach actually pushes out, that is because your diaphragm is flattening out, and so it's actually pushing away some of the stuff that's in your stomach area. So that's good. If you breathe down into your stomach, sometimes you'll actually even hear people say, breathe into your belly. This is all they're talking about. They're just talking about breathing so deeply that that diaphragm flattens out and you're taking in more oxygen. The second thing that I'll talk about is posture, because in our North American society especially, so many of us are used to just kind of relaxing back in our chairs, maybe kind of hunching over, especially when we're typing. And did you even just now hear a change in my voice? My voice usually is supported by my diaphragm, but when I'm hunched over like this, it gets very short, very shallow. That's because I can't breathe very well when I'm like this. It gets a little bit strained. And when we're trying to breathe like this, our blood doesn't get as much oxygen in it, and so we become much more tense. And of course, this is not a natural supportive way of sitting. So our muscles start to tighten up in order to help sustain us while we're in this unnatural posture. So if you can get used to supporting yourself, head above heart above your seat, that will help you to expand the capacity that your lungs have for breathing. It gives you more space for your diaphragm to flatten out so that you can take those deep belly breaths. And when you are breathing mindfully, if you pay attention to your pace, it's not just about breathing more deeply, but also breathing a bit more slowly. Sometimes the instruction that you'll hear is to breathe in deeply and then let it out slowly. Now there's a way of practicing mindful breathing that is so helpful for managing stress that Navy SEALs are even instructed in how to breathe this way. And if you think you have stress in your life, certainly a Navy SEAL has, I'm sure, even more stress in their life. So what they are taught to do, and what I will share with you, is something that's called box breathing. It's when you breathe in for a count, let's say a count of 4, and then you hold at that count of 4, and then you exhale for the count of 4, and then you hold for the count of 4. So inhale, hold, exhale, hold. Now, anytime that you are starting to feel the jitters or butterflies in your stomach, or you're starting to feel that fight or flight mode kick in, you can just practice box breathing for a minute, maybe, or less. Do it 3 times in a row, 4 times in a row, whatever it is that helps you to start to feel like your muscles are relaxing. And that's the sign that the oxygen is coming into your blood. It's oxygenating those muscles. It's helping you to relax very naturally. It's as good as a Xanax. So it's a good thing to do. Okay, the second thing that I want to share with you, first one was breathing. The second, paying attention to bodily sensations. And you could be anywhere along a spectrum of maybe at one end feeling completely in tune with your body, knowing exactly what your body is telling you at any moment, knowing where your energy wants to go, knowing what your level of excitement and enthusiasm is, knowing what the health is of your various parts, to, on the other hand, maybe at the other end of the spectrum, feeling like the word body is a 4-letter word and not knowing how you feel, but if somebody asks you, then you're fine. And every time somebody asks you, you're fine. And as far as you know, that's true. You're always fine. And that's okay. Wherever you are on that spectrum, most of us are going to be somewhere in the middle. Just start where you are. And what I will share with you is that there are benefits to trying to lean a little closer to that end of the spectrum of knowing what's going on in you physically, knowing what your energy level is, knowing just what you're experiencing. And what it takes to be able to do this is simply accepting your body for whatever it is you might be experiencing. A lot of times when we start to tune into bodily sensations, we might get distracted by, oh gosh, that body part is a little bit too big, or that body part is a little bit too small, or I don't really like that part of myself. I don't like how that's shaped. I don't like how that's showing up. And those distractions, that lack of self-acceptance, that judgment takes us out of the present moment. It causes us to project into what are other people thinking, what will they think of me, and it's an experience of self that is self-lacerating. So when you practice tuning into bodily sensations, part of that practice is simply accepting whatever it is you find. Even if what you find is a headache that you don't want to have, practice accepting that the headache is there. If you find tension, if your shoulders are ratcheted up to your ears and you want to relax, you're trying to relax, start by accepting, my body is experiencing a lot of tension. That's okay. Part of the benefit of tuning in to bodily sensations is that it helps our minds to let go of worrying about the future, what's coming up, or ruminating about the past, what's already happened. We get so obsessed sometimes with rehearsing for some difficult conversation that's coming up, or that we think that we want to have, or reflecting on some conversation that's already taken place and coming up with, this is what I should have said, or even just getting a little obsessed over the things that that person said that don't make any sense and they shouldn't have said it that way and that was wrong. When we tune into bodily sensations, that helps us to just let go of the past and the future and just be in the present. For me, I've also found that the more I've been able to tune into what I am experiencing physically, the more I get a heads up kind of from my body about when I'm on autopilot. And what I mean by that is that if I'm not in the moment, if I'm just doing things out of habit, doing things that are rote, chances are very good that my reactivity is going to be a lot higher. I'm just doing what comes naturally. And honestly, what comes naturally is a lot of reactivity. It's a lot of judgment. It's judgment of myself. It's judgment of others. It's deciding what I like, what I don't like, what's right, what's wrong. And sometimes, at least, we need to take a break from all of that and allow ourselves the freedom to question all of those things that seem really obvious. Those are decisions that happen really fast. If we can just be present, then we can look at things as they're showing up right now. We can take a little more time, exercise some patience with ourselves and with others, and try to see things as they really are, rather than as we have preconceived them to be. So one of the things that happens when I'm on autopilot is people tell me I'm not a good listener. And that's true. I will be hearing their words and I will have already decided where they're going and whether or not I like it, and whether or not I already knew that and what I would do to fix that problem. I get ahead of them. I'm not just taking it in. So if I can notice my own autopilot sensations, that fluttery feeling in the chest, or for me it's kind of a leaning forward, a sense of driving, there's sort of tension across in my arms and in my chest, and certainly in my forehead, maybe even in my jaw. If I notice that that's what I'm feeling, then I know, I'm not likely to be a very good listener right now. I'm probably in a judgmental frame of mind. So it reminds me to breathe, to re-oxygenate my blood, to intentionally just relax my muscles, and to let go of my preconceived notions and just really tune in and care about that individual's humanity, their frailty, their individuality, the ways in which they are unlike any other person on the planet. So how could I possibly know where they're going with what they're trying to say? So it helps me to be more accepting of them, more accepting of myself and of the situation, and just tune in and be present. So that was the second tip, tuning into bodily sensations. The third is self-compassion. And self-compassion is so important. My clients have been discovering that if they don't take some time with really learning about and practicing self-compassion, then what happens is they start learning about all of this other stuff about self-development and ways to pay attention to relationships rather than individuals, and all of what they are learning becomes laced with self-judgment. And they may start coaching kind of ready to learn and ready to be better, but as time goes on, they just get more and more beaten down until I bring self-compassion exercises into the work that we're doing together. And that then will allow for the space to learn and grow without that accompanying self-judgment that we use to tear ourselves down so often. So when we're practicing self-compassion, what we really are practicing is being a companion to our own suffering, our own humanness, recognizing it for what it is. It may not be huge. It may be something that's pretty simple, and just saying, I'm experiencing some suffering. Okay, this is part of being human, so it's okay. It may not be pleasant, and because I'm experiencing something that's unpleasant, I want to be kind to myself in this moment. And that's really all the self-compassion exercise is about. Is recognizing the suffering and bringing some kindness in the context of knowing that suffering is part of our human experience. Now, the fourth and last tip that I'm going to share with you about putting the oxygen mask on ourselves first is really around a practice of gratitude and a practice of appreciation. With gratitude, the reason that that's important is because so often we become really tuned into problems. And that makes sense to do. Of course you're tuned into problems. Being tuned into problems and solving them well is a huge part of what has made you successful up to this point. So you become known as a problem solver, and people bring problems to you, and you go looking for problems, and you've noticed problems and you solve them, and you notice other problems and you solve those, and people bring you problems and you solve those. And before you know it, your whole life, your whole perspective just becomes about all of these problems. However, what we don't realize when we're totally sucked into all of those problems is that there's all of this other life that's happening that's good. It's fine. It's not broken. It doesn't require our attention. It's just happening. It's showing up. And we're not paying any attention to it because we're all about the problems. But when that happens, we ourselves get dragged down and we stop having the joy of life. But a simple practice of gratitude is really just about allowing the problems to be part of the picture, but taking a step back so that we can see more of the rest, so that we can see it and intentionally acknowledge it. This could be anything from acknowledging that, you know what, I have a house and it keeps the rain out, and for the most part, I'm warm enough when it's cold outside and I'm cool enough when it's hot outside. I have a good house. Things work pretty well in here too. When I try to close the door, it latches. When I try to turn the doorknob to open it up again, it turns. When I go to flush the toilet, it flushes, and that's a good thing. If we don't take time to notice the things that are working well, the cumulative effect of problems, it can just wear us down so much. So if that's something that you can relate to, I encourage a practice of gratitude, which is something that doesn't have to take any time. It's just about noticing what's working well. The other piece of this is appreciation, and sort of arbitrarily, I differentiate between gratitude and appreciation because gratitude might be around stuff and situations, but appreciation is around people. And we can very easily get entirely tuned in to the problems within people. We notice he's got a strangely shaped mouth and is kind of abrasive with people, and man, he always has some kind of bone to pick with you, and I just don't really want to spend time around him. So we notice all of the things that we don't like about somebody, or all of the things about them that make it hard to work with them. We then lose sight of everything else that is a part of the picture with that person. Maybe, yes, they are coming to you with too many problems, but that is also a sign that this is somebody who's really engaged and really cares about things working well and wants to make sure that that continues to happen. When we notice the things that are wrong, there's always some other piece of it that is right. And the more you can notice the full person, the more you're able to allow those pieces that you don't like to be in perspective. So, just to review, 4 tips for putting the oxygen mask on yourself first. First of all, practice deep breathing. Second, tune into your bodily sensations. What are you feeling physically? The third is practicing self-compassion. And the fourth, practicing gratitude and appreciation. Of course, there's so many more things that you can do to help take care of yourself. But if you get started on these, they will help you to get better results right away. So, now that you've gotten all of this training, I have a question for you. What is your next step? I will encourage you, if you haven't, for whatever reason, please do watch all of the videos. Please do take notes while you are watching them, and just think about yourself. What's going on in your relationships? Are any of those professional relationship pitfalls a part of your life? Have you identified where you have been going wrong? And what about those crazy makers? Do you have a sense now for something that you can do differently, something you can pay attention to differently that will help you to manage those relationships? Can you see the map to getting your inspirational groove back? What will you start doing today to take better care of yourself? When you are ready for that next step, listen to yourself. Listen to your heart's longing for investment in your future. So thank you for being with me for this free training video series. By downloading this video, you now have access to the members only section, so there's some good stuff in there for you. Go explore there at the careerleadershipalignment.com website. You're going to find new stuff gets added all of the time, and I hope to get to know you better real soon. Thanks so much.